jumping right into it. Seems like you guys are really curious about this whole Terrence Howard and Flower of Life thing.
Yeah, tons of articles and videos he sent in.
Definitely see why. It's ancient history and modern science and
Mm.
a little bit of Hollywood all mixed together.
Mm.
Sounds like a recipe for a pretty fascinating deep dive to me.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's such a weird mix, right? You've got this
Right.
super old symbol, the flower of life, and it shows up like everywhere around the world for thousands of years.
Okay, yeah.
And then you have Terrence Howard, the actor, he's claiming he like figured out all these universal secrets hidden inside this ancient symbol.
Right.
But then you also have actual physicists like Nassim Haramein who are looking into similar ideas, but from like a scientific point of view.
Okay, so let's back up for a second.
Yeah.
What exactly is this Flower of Life? We talking like just a shape, a design?
So it is geometric pattern, yeah.
Okay.
Imagine if you dump a bunch of pebbles in a pond, right? And you see all those like ripples going outward. But instead of like random ripples, these are all perfect circles overlapping in this really specific symmetrical way.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a flower, kind of, with all those circles.
Exactly. That's why they call it the flower of life.
That makes sense. And this design, you said it's really old. Like, how old are we talking?
Oh, ancient. Like one of the most famous examples is in the Temple of Osiris in Egypt. That dates back like 6,000 years.
Wow.
But it's not just Egypt. You find versions of it all over the place. Old Chinese temples, Roman buildings, even Celtic art, I think.
So it was like a global thing.
Pretty much, yeah. Which makes you think, like, it must have meant something super important to people back then, across all these different cultures.
That's true. So it wasn't just like a cool pattern to them. There was something more to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And this is where it gets interesting. Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance guy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
He was obsessed with the flower of life. Like, he studied the geometry of it and how it connected to the golden ratio.
The golden ratio. Refresh my memory on that one.
It's this mathematical proportion that shows up in nature all the time, and it's often associated with, like, beauty and art and stuff.
Okay, right.
So Da Vinci, he even used the golden ratio in his paintings, and you can see him playing around with the flower of life in his notebooks.
That's so wild to think about all these brilliant minds, like hundreds of years apart, all interested in this one symbol. So what was it about the flower of life that they found so, like, profound?
Well, some people think it represents, like, the basic building blocks of how everything was created.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, there's this author, Drunvalo Melchizedek. He's the one who kind of made the flower of life popular again recently. And he said it symbolizes, like, the whole process of creation. He even linked it to the story of Genesis in the Bible.
Hold on, the Bible. How does this shape connect to that?
Well, Melchizedek, his ideas get a little out there, but basically he saw the flower of life as like a visual version of how creation unfolded. Like each circle represents a step in the process.
Yep.
And he also connected it to the tree of life, saying the fruit on the tree, it kind of looked like the flower of life pattern.
Huh. Interesting. So his ideas, people, they liked them.
Yeah, they definitely caught on. A lot of people got really into the symbol and trying to figure out what it all meant.
So we're talking like a symbol that might actually represent the creation of everything. That's a pretty bold claim.
Right. And Melchizedek, he didn't stop there. He also said the flower of life, it mirrors how cells divide, like when an embryo is growing. So he was basically saying, this is the blueprint for how the universe and all life came to be.
Oh, okay. That's a lot to take in. So then Terrence Howard comes along and says he's cracked the code of this flower of life. What exactly did he claim to have figured out?
He was pretty vague about the specifics, but he claimed he'd uncovered like 10,000-year-old secrets hidden in the geometry. And get this, he was so sure about his discoveries that he announced he was quitting acting to focus on them full time.
Wow, that's commitment.
Yeah, and he even started talking about this whole new system of math he called teriology. He was basically saying that the way we count, starting from 1, is all wrong. He thought 1 actually equals 2.
I vaguely remember that.
Mm.
Didn't go over too well with the science folks, did it?
Not really. Most scientists were like, no, that's not how math works. They called it pseudoscience.
Right. Makes sense. But then there's this whole other thing about the void, this supposedly empty space. Didn't Howard say something about that?
Yeah. He kept saying the void wasn't actually empty, but full of unseen energy. He even said, quote, I found that there is something in the void. And you know what's crazy? That idea, it actually kind of lines up with some pretty cutting-edge physics.
Really? An actor's intuition intersecting with real science. That's wild.
I know, right? It's like a bizarre crossover episode. And this is where Nassim Haramein comes in. He's a physicist who's been researching stuff like vacuum fluctuation and zero-point energy, which sound a lot like what Howard was describing with his void idea.
Okay, you're going to have to break those down for me. Vacuum fluctuation, zero-point energy.
Yeah.
Those are new ones.
So think about all the space around us seems empty, right? Well, quantum physics says it's actually not empty.
Okay.
It's actually filled with these like virtual particles that are constantly popping in and out of existence, like a super fast energy dance.
So it's like always buzzing with stuff, even though we can't see it?
Exactly. That's what physicists call vacuum fluctuation. And Haramein, he thinks this zero-point energy might be the source of like all matter and energy in the universe.
Okay, now that sounds like something Terrence Howard would say.
Right. It really makes you wonder, are they both talking about the same thing? Could Howard's void be the same as Haramein's vacuum? And could the flower of life, this thing that's fascinated people for like forever, could it be the key to understanding this hidden energy?
Yeah, Haramein's claims are definitely bold. He really thinks this vacuum energy could change the world as we know it.
So we're talking like big changes, right? Like what? Flying cars?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not that specifically. But he's talking about things that right now we just think are impossible. Like he thinks if we understand how this field, this energy creates matter, creates everything around us, we could like copy that process in a lab.
Whoa.
Imagine like creating matter out of nothing. Or pulling energy directly from this field, this vacuum.
Okay, that's definitely getting into sci-fi territory again. But you mentioned something earlier, what was it, dynamical Casimir effect?
Yeah.
That sounded a little more grounded in real science.
Oh, yeah, that's a real thing. Scientists have actually measured it. It's basically like they figured out how to manipulate this vacuum energy and get photons out of it. You know, photons are like particles of light.
Okay.
So it's proof that this vacuum, this void, whatever you want to call it, it's not just sitting there doing nothing. It's like an active part of the universe. It's got energy that we might be able to use.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So let's bring this back to Terrence Howard and the Flower of Life for a second.
Yeah.
He was talking about discovering this new way of counting teriology based on what he saw in the Flower of Life. And, okay, most people didn't buy it, but he also talked about there being something in the void. Is it possible that, like, he was picking up on this idea of vacuum energy, even if he didn't, have the science words to describe it?
That's a really interesting thought. I mean, teriology itself hasn't really been accepted by scientists.
Right.
But maybe Howard, by looking at the Flower of Life, maybe he was sensing this deeper reality, this energy field that physicists are just starting to understand now.
And maybe, just maybe, the Flower of Life itself, like with all those circles and patterns, maybe it's a way to visualize how this vacuum energy works.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. The Flower of Life is all about like connections, All those circles flow into each other. They create this one whole unified thing. So maybe it's showing us that everything in the universe is connected through this energy field, this vacuum energy.
Okay, so we're not talking about just empty space here. It's more like space is full of potential. It's like where everything comes from.
Exactly. And it makes you think, like, what if ancient cultures, what if they understood this stuff better than we give them credit for?
Yeah.
What if they knew about this interconnected energy field and they were trying to show us through symbols like the Flower of Life?
There's like ancient wisdom meeting modern physics, all because of an actor and a mysterious symbol. That's pretty cool. But let's get practical for a second. If we say, okay, this vacuum energy is real, it's where everything comes from, what could we actually do with that knowledge? Like real-world applications.
Oh, man, the possibilities are huge. GE. Like Haramein thinks if we figure out how to tap into this energy, we could solve some of our biggest problems. Imagine like unlimited clean energy or being able to create brand new materials, new technologies, things we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. But are there any like downsides? Could messing with this vacuum energy backfire on us somehow?
That's a great question, and it's definitely something to think about. Anytime we're dealing with something this powerful, this unknown, there's always a chance things could go wrong,
Right.
Like unintended consequences. So we have to be careful. We have to be responsible and make sure we understand the risks before we start, playing around with this energy field.
So it's not just about scientific discoveries. It's also about being ethical, about thinking about the consequences of what we do.
Exactly. We're talking about potentially changing the world here. We got to make sure we do it right.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Definitely. But it's also incredibly exciting. Like, think about what we could achieve if we can figure this out.
I remember Harriman said something like, if we can understand how this field works, how it creates everything around us, then we can go into a lab and basically do the same thing. We could do things that seem impossible today.
He's right. And it's pretty inspiring, you know? It shows what's possible when we combine, like, ancient wisdom with modern science. We can break down the walls between different ways of knowing and maybe, just maybe, unlock a deeper understanding of the universe.
And it all comes back to this deep dive, right? Terrence Howard and his fascination with the flower of life. Maybe he was on to something big, even if his approach was a little different.
Yeah, it's like both him and Harriman, they're both driven by this desire to figure out how the universe works, to find those hidden secrets and unlock the potential that's out there. And even if, they don't have all the answers, their passion, their curiosity, it's pretty contagious. It reminds us that there's always more to learn, always more to explore, and that sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination.
So where do we go from here? We've talked about the flower of life, Terrence Howard's theories, Nassim Harameyn's physics. Feels like we've only just scratched the surface of what this symbol could mean,
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? It opens up all these questions, all these possibilities. Like, it makes you look beyond what you see, beyond what you think you know, and realize that there might be a whole other reality out there just waiting to be discovered.
It's like we're standing at the edge of this huge, uncharted territory.
Right.
Full of mysteries, just waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah.
But to explore it, we need more than just, science stuff, more than labs and equations.
Totally. We need open minds. We got to be willing to question everything we think we know, and maybe a little bit of that childlike wonder that Terrence Howard seems to have. That helps too.
So to our listener, the one who's been on this journey with us, this deep dive, we'll leave you with this. What if the universe is even more amazing than we thought?
Right.
What if the answers we're looking for, what if they're not just in labs and textbooks, but also in ancient wisdom and things like the flower of life?
Yeah, and what if, by putting all these different ways of knowing together, we can understand ourselves, understand our place in this whole grand scheme of things even better?
Now, those are some big questions to think about. It's funny how we started with an actor, talking about this ancient symbol and ended up discussing, like, the most mind-blowing physics theories out there.
It really shows you how all these different areas of knowledge, they can, like, overlap and teach us something new. I mean, who would have thought Terrence Howard and his ideas about the flower of life would lead us to vacuum energy and, like, the nature of reality?
Yeah, it's a good reminder that inspiration can come from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if an idea sounds a little out there at first, we should at least, like, be open to exploring it.
Definitely. Of course, we should always be, like, skeptical and critical.
Oh, for sure.
But sometimes the most groundbreaking ideas, they start out sounding crazy, right?
Like Galileo, right? When he said the Earth revolves around the sun.
Exactly. People thought he was nuts back then.
They condemned him for it. But, now we know he was right. His ideas totally changed how we see the universe.
And who knows, maybe someday some of the stuff we've been talking about today, maybe it'll be just as, like, obvious and accepted as the Earth going around the sun.
Yeah, maybe we're on the verge of another big shift in how we understand things. So for our listeners, the ones who've been with us on this whole deep dive, what should they be thinking about? Like, what's the big takeaway here?
I think the biggest thing is to remember that there's so much we still don't know about the universe.
Oh, yeah.
What we see, what we think is real, it might just be a tiny part of something way bigger and more complex.
It's like that saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly. And the flower of life, whether it literally holds scientific secrets or not, it's a symbol of that mystery, that there's always more to discover.
It's like we're just starting to explore this vast ocean of knowledge, and we've only dipped our toes in the water.
And who knows what amazing things we'll find if we keep exploring, if we keep asking questions, keep pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
So, to our listener, I'll leave you with this. What if everything around you, even the stuff that seems totally ordinary, what if it's all made of this unseen energy, like a hidden symphony of quantum stuff creating everything we see and touch?
Right. And what if the flower of life, with all its beautiful geometry, what if it holds the key to understanding how it all works?
And what if you, our listener, what if you're part of this grand journey of discovery? What if you help us unlock these secrets?
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep that curiosity alive. You never know what you might find.
That's a great way to put it.
Uh,
So until next time, keep those minds curious and stay tuned for another deep dive.